Hey all, welcome back to the channel. And this is going to be my look at my custom Nexus Prime. There's a story to be told here on my trek to this Prime, and we're going to dig into it all in the latest GotBot True review. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble host, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, loud 'em up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all my social media links. All of those are in the description down below. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring, or of course hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member. And this is my custom Nexus Prime. Finally, this has been a while coming. Some time ago, I started a trek to amass a version of the 13 for myself. Admittedly, some of them are official, some of them are third party, some of them are customs, and this is no exception. There's quite a story with this guy that involves a number of friends of the channel. It even involves Starscream wife herself, and it involves a little bit of creative thinking, as well as trying to kind of mimic what I could of the actual combiner that is meant to be Nexus Maximus or Nexus Prime. The actual Nexus Prime goes for a hefty price in the aftermarket. Too rich for my blood, so I done the next best thing. How well did it turn out? How well does it work? Well, we have a lot of story to kind of unpack here. We're not going to be looking at the transformations. We've seen it before. These are Combiner Wars molds that have been used here. But there's still a lot to kind of discuss. Other things were in the package as well. How this came about, what he looks like with the other Prime. So without any further ado, let's head over to the table and take a closer look at this guy. Join me, if you will, on the journey of Nexus Prime, my custom Nexus Prime. And there's actually a bit of a fun journey to kind of discover here. I want to give some shout outs right off the bat, because this has occurred because of a lot of people, starting with Maximal 10 I want to give a shout out to, Triple R, Rolling Redneck Reviews, of course Starscream wife, and Tortoise. There's a lot, and I'll leave some links for some of this in the description, but there's a lot here to sort of unpack on this journey. We're not going to be looking at transformations, as I said. This is a little bit of a different one, so let's kick things off with the bottom of the barrel first, and we'll be working our way up to a little bit of a showcase of the primes, if you will. So the very first thing that I want to note is this thing. I don't know what it is. It's a freebie that came in the package that I ordered from Tortoise. Unfortunately, on first transformation, I actually broke the arm off. So this was not a great start. There is wrist rotation, but as you rotate the wrist, it comes out. There's no knees or anything. I cannot transform this back. It's a throwaway, but it's just worth noting that it came in the package. As did this thing. And if you're looking at it and saying, that looks vaguely familiar, this is basically a KO of Warbotron's version of Onslaught. And it's a rough KO, man. It is a rough KO. So to do the transformation, we flip down the feet of this thing and we pull out the legs and we split the legs. I'll say this, heavy, robust plastic, like the plastic, it's not gonna break, but there's no knees. Right away, there's no knees. We pick these off the side, and then we bring this up over to the head. I'm gonna show you this head up close in a moment, because it is definitely the stuff of nightmares. Then we split the shoulders, and we bring these pieces up on the side, and we bring the shoulders down, and then there's a panel under the tummy that we split out, and then the whole thing comes up over, and this little tab goes into the tummy section down here and solidifies it in, and you just orient those arms and that down. Oh, and you got to rotate the waist. Yes, the guy has a waist, and then you stand it up, and it's off screen. I'm gonna show you that face first, though. Do you remember when you used to have pleasant dreams? That's not gonna happen anymore now. You're welcome. And while not a fierce attack, this guy is definitely a bit of a gentle slap. The head, it can go left and right. The arms, like you get that out of the way, they can go forward and back pretty good. There's a ball peg here, so it goes all the way out to the side. Not much in terms of an elbow because of the molding. I don't think there's there's not a wrist or anything. You can swivel at the waist. I mean, well out to the side, all the way forward, all the way back. No knee that I can discern. It seems like no knee, but honestly, like outside of no knee, it's a fairly simple transformation. It's kind of a functional robot. It looks like this, unfortunately. And finally, when we talk about extras that came in the package, I also got this guy, and this is actually pretty cool. It's one of the cassettes, obviously, and when we flip this out, and we flip this here out, and we flip down, and we flip down, there's probably a way to get these out too, but I can't find it on this KO to do it. I'm sure it can be done, I just can't find it. But in the end, here we have a green version of, who is it, Slugfest? Is that who it is? I think it's Slugfest. Of course, yeah. It is Slugfest, because the real Slugfest is green and like pink or purple or something, if I'm not mistaken. This guy, of course, is just 2 shades of green, but like it's kind of no mistaking who it is. I just wish I could remember how I get these up. I'm sure that somebody's going to be yelling in the comments, blah, 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 do this, that, the other thing. And there's probably a way to like hook it up, whatever. It wasn't the main event. Then we got a pack of these cards, and I think they're like word cards. Like I assume that this is truck, but I don't know. This is one side of them: mixer, excavator, bus, ship, rocket, fire truck, train, submarine, cable car, bicycle, car, sports car, plane, taxi, tank, ambulance, motorcycle, police car, helicopter. Oh, my first double with bus, second double with excavator, third double with mixer, and back to truck. And if we look on the other side, we see a lot of product images of CBB offerings. That, of course, is their long haul, and then we have their Mixmaster and their Scavenger and their Scrapper, the G2 colors, by the way, though the G1 colors are also available for that. Then we have G1 Silverbolt and like Onslaught here again in some wild colors. This is their Hot Spot. There you go. Wow, I went a long way there with that. Again, we have another version of a Constructicon there. That, of course, being Hook. One of the aerial bots here. Another aerial bot. I can't remember all the names now. Going through here, you can see, and of course they're in different colors. Like this lad, for example, I got the green one. I made him into Death Cobra to go with my custom Lio Kaiser. Again, like a green Swindle. That one we've already seen, I believe. Maybe we didn't. Maybe I haven't had repeats yet. Like, you know, an orange version of Brawl. All red first aid, and, you know, there's your Groove. Your Streetwise and your Blades. And your Constructicons, once again, I think they are just doubles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah! And so here we have the whole team. Now you may notice that I have more Limbots here than I need. So, here's where kind of the story begins. Originally, I had a very bad KO. It was a $7.50 Canadian KO, mostly of the Fall of Cybertron Bruticus, that served as my sad Nexus Prime, because his colors were they sort of put me in the mind of Nexus Prime. I looked at him in episode 659, man, he's bad. And I started thinking to myself, you know what, I need a better iteration of Nexus Prime. And my combiners are Combiner Wars Power of the Primes combiners, so I want something that can kind of tie in with that. Now I got Sad Nexus Prime thanks to Maximal 10. And it's what sort of like lit the spark in me to want to be able to have a better Nexus Prime. So I thank him for the inspiration. Then enter Starscream Wife and Tortoise. The red deco of the Defensor was available there. She ended up getting that whole set for me for the holidays, and with the red base and the silver and grays that are on it, I said, you know what, adding some blue, and I think this might be able to work for a version of Nexus Prime. But it still wasn't quite right. Triple R, Rolling Redneck Reviews, he sent me in the direction of a custom 3D printed Nexus Prime head, and I was like, hey, that really helps things. But I wanted to try and get the Limbots a little bit closer. So what I did is I was able to source, this is thanks to support from patrons and channel members, I was able to source 2 more of the Jet Lads. Again, slightly stylized body types, but it's closer to accurate. It's too bad that we don't have a red version of the Tank Boy, but we don't. And my plan is to kind of change up, because Nexus Prime is the first combiner. Apparently, like, he can combine with anyone or anything, and like we'll say his body type is sort of always changing. So I kind of plan to be able to switch some of these out, and some of them serve better than other ones. In terms of vehicle modes, whether you got these stylized colors, whether you got the actual colors because you'd missed out on the Combiner Wars offerings before, you know, I know that there is a CBB version of Bruticus and of Defensor and of Superion. I know for sure those 3. And I would say the plastic quality is a solid 85% of what the actual is, probably even higher, maybe 90%. Every joint on these guys is pinned, so the joints are very stiff, but the elbows are pinned, the knees are pinned, the armatures for when you combine or wars the legs, they're pinned, so everything feels very solid on the guys. Sometimes a little too solid, a little bit scary, but everything is there and pinned, so I like it. The plain lads, I mean, they work fine. I did a little bit of custom work, but this is basically them in vehicle mode. We've seen the transformations, so I don't need to do those at all. They transform the exact same way as they always did. The helicopter lad, like his rotors spin freely. The plane lads are the plane lads. The tail pieces, they move up and down freely. The wings, same thing. Our motorcycle can roll no problem. Our fire engine can roll no problem. Our police car is... These 2 are probably the roughest, I find. I find that certain things there aren't quite as nice as I'd like for them to be. They do roll fine in vehicle mode, no problem at all. I'm just very quickly going to show each of them a little more close up in vehicle mode before we move on. Naturally, this is a red version of Firefly. Now, Firefly is pretty much red anyway. This isn't too much of a departure. A bit more red on the main body, which we'll see. I painted the bit of blue right there. The rest of it was already on here. I also painted the arms blue, but we'll see that again in a little bit. It works, looks great. Same goes for our blue boy here. I painted the red back here and up right there. It was nothing there. The silver is all as it should be. Up here on the cockpit, I painted that red, it was silver. So again, great looking plane, works very, very well. Our helicopter boy, again, I painted some blue here. I clear coated it. It is a darker blue. The rotors, they were just gray. I painted them red and again clear coated them as well. Otherwise, he works just fine. Naturally, scale is down to toilet, as we have a motorcycle the same size as a couple of like fighter jets and a helicopter and a fire engine and a car. So it like the vehicle scale's super way off, but like I like this. It's a fine motorcycle bot. It's just obviously it's too big, but that's okay. I prefer that they scale in robot mode anyway, personally. Now, some people might ask, hey, why don't you use this guy in place of the tank? Honestly, he's not a great arm when combined. He makes a much better leg. The hood tends to be a little flippy floppy, and the two sections back here don't tend to stay together as a solid forearm. But he is a pretty fine vehicle, he's a fine robot, he's a fine leg, so we'll give him credit where credit's due. Also, you might notice blue here, a blue stripe down the side and blue up here. Some of that was silver, oh, and blue on the back right here. Some of that was silver, some of that was just not painted at all. The line on the side was silver, this was silver. I think these were silver, but I'm not sure. So, and it was nothing on the back. So, I mean, just a little bit of added blue detail, but there is a big sea of red here. Our Streetwise boy is all right. All I did was paint this blue and two blue stripes down the back and clear coated them. Honestly, it was nothing. There was just a sea of red, no stripes down the back, and the light bar was just red like the rest of the roof of the car. So, maybe the least amount of love put into this guy. And finally, here we have our fire engine lad. Of course, this is not correct, but I mean, you can do what you like with it, I suppose. We know that there's different configurations of how to set that up. I just have it left in the mode that it's got to be in for when I put this guy in robot mode, just because it was easier. We know how this transforms. We've seen it 100 times. This one, honestly, like, he rolls fine enough, as fine as this is. He's obviously catching up a little bit. Maybe, I think I forgot to put this up. Yeah, there we go. He rolls a bit better than it. Although it doesn't look like. It looks like he's still scraping. Weird. It feels like he's rolling, but he looks like he's scraping. And here we have the robot modes for the entire team. I will tell you now that the transformations to get here are exactly what you would expect from the Combiner Wars Power of the Primes line. Everything here works exactly the same, except it's very stiff because I can confirm two things. One, that the heads are on mushroom pegs now rather than ball joints. And two, that every single hinge, joint, whatever you want to call it, all now have pins in them. And the pins do make it exponentially tighter. Some of these succeed a little bit better than others. I'm just going to give a very, very brief synopsis without kind of going into too much detail here. But I can also tell you that all of them have the same articulation as the official, except for one that I think is pretty hindered. Now, in essence, the blue lad over here is my version of Skyfall, and the red is my version of Breakaway, since apparently that's two of the names used to make up the overall combined mode of Nexus Prime. I don't think I'm going to use those names. I think it's all, for me, just going to be Nexus Prime, but officially that's the names that are applied to them. The legs should also be painted like the legs of Breakaway here should also be blue. The legs of Skyfall should also be red, naturally. Just a little bit of paint that I did there. The heads rotate around. They can't go up and down because they're just on a mushroom peg. The arms, I mean, on both of them, they still go all the way out to the side and can go all the way around. The elbows are now pinned. While we have a nice swivel there, we also still have a 90 degree. It's ratcheted and pinned now, which is kind of nice. Both of them have legs that can go well out to the side, back, forward. Thigh swivel, that's pretty tight on both of them actually. The knee is now also pinned. We get 90 degrees there, no ankle tilt, and we do still have a waist. So as I said, everything that the originals had. I like both of these. I think that both of these are highly successful. And next up we basically have Topspin. Now from the waist up, Topspin's coloration is actually fairly good. I probably could have painted the head blue, but I don't know. I couldn't be bothered to paint the head blue. I kind of like the red on it. The lower body, however, is definitely stylized from what it should be, because the thighs should be red and then the very lower part should be blue. But I like the cohesive red look of the helicopter, so that's why I sort of left that the way that I did. I think it would have been too much blue for my taste anyway, so just a little touch on the shoulder worked fine for me. Again, the head goes around, the arms all the way around, bicep swivel, pinned at the elbow, 90 degrees, waist swivel, 90-degree knee, and again pinned at the knee. Also pinned down here on the toes. So, like I said, pinned everywhere. I like it. It makes the guy feel solid and robust, at least to me. Next up we have the leader of the group, Heatwave, and I'm going to tell you now, this is a better use than the original. This is better than the original, and there's a couple of reasons why, and I'm going to tell you why this beats my hotspot. First, when you collapse the legs for combined mode, there's a little tab up here on the upper thigh that the lower leg sort of locks in over. And I never find that it stays very well locked in on my hotspot. I have done some work and fixed it somewhat, but it never stayed in perfect. I always felt it was a bit better on my Bruticus with the Onslaught mold, but here they stay perfect. It is exactly how it should have been designed, how I think it was intended to be designed, but the kind of softer, more pliable plastic of the original doesn't allow it to lock in the same. Not on my copy anyway. Secondly, back over here, these pieces here that fold out to become the chest in combined mode are hard plastic on this guy, and they stay locked in. The torso is significantly tighter on Nexus Prime combined than it is on Victorion or Defensor or even the Inferno that was made from this mold. It's honestly, the KO's chest piece is far more secure, much like it is with Bruticus, and I found the Bruticus chest really secure. Again, the exact same articulation, works very well. Everything again is pinned, like the toes are all pinned, the elbows are pinned, the knees, they're all pinned, like everything's pinned. So I dig it. Now, that brings us to the elephant in the room. We don't actually have a tank here for Land Quake. So I had to kind of make a decision. Do I get a version of the tank that I would completely have to repaint? Maybe one day that'll happen. Maybe a red version of the tank will come out and I'll be able to just customize it a little bit like I did with the others. Or do I make do with my other three members? So I'm going to make do with my other three members. I do not have names for them. Here's what I can tell you. This guy over here, his articulation exactly the same. He does make a good leg. He makes a fine car. He makes an alright robot. I can't complain. I mean, again, all the same articulation. Pinned here at the elbows and here at the wrist. The head, again, left and right because it's on a mushroom peg now. The legs still out to the side. Kind of squeak a bit. Forward and back. You can hear the squeak there. Pinned at the knee again, but we have it nice and deep. So, I dig it. I dig it. I don't know if... I guess he's an okay arm. He's alright. I do feel like that the part of the lower leg that you open and close for transformation, because it's pinned, it's real tight and a little bit scary. Then on the far end, our ambulance boy, I think, is the least successful. The shoulder pads hinder the shoulder outward movement. This piece back here, while it kind of locks in, it doesn't stay there and it tends to flop about. The knees don't peg in as well as I would like. They do tend to come out. There is a tolerance issue there. He holds together well in vehicle mode. He holds together well in leg mode. And he holds together fine in robot mode. It's just his articulation is limited. Doesn't hold together great in arm mode. So that leaves us with this guy. I chose this guy to kind of really be the stand-in for the arm mode because he has the most kind of blue and silver detailing, which kind of breaks up the red, just as would be the case if we had the tank. Plus, because he has two blasters that come with him, you can sort of plug the blasters into his hands in combined mode and mimic the turret of the tank somewhat. A bit better than you can with the other two. So it is obviously a certain indulgence that I'm having to take, but you know what? I like being able to kind of change out limbs and characters to show that, his combining ability is ever working. Overall, though, as a set, fine vehicles, fine robots, almost as good as the official, and that brings us finally to the combined mode. And here, of course, we have the combined mode. It is exactly how you would expect the transformation to go. Everything works quite well. The range of motion is excellent. No limbs are hindered really at all. The torso, when you move the shoulder forward and back, this chest piece, because it's hard plastic, it stays tabbed in. And the only kind of gripes I could possibly levy would be that the combiner peg for this shoulder lad and the combiner peg for the blue plain boy, both of those guys, their combiner pegs are heavy ratchets. So I do find that when I move them, I gotta kind of put some elbow grease and some muscle into actually moving the joint. Now I'd rather that those joints, those pegs be too tight than loosey-goosey, but it does make kind of freely moving certain limbs a slight challenge because of the fact that the ratchets are heavy. But like I said, I prefer heavy ratchets. A fair amount of paint work was done here. And most of the paint here that I did, outside of what we've already talked about with the limbs, is on the torso. I painted the main torso, which was mostly red and gray. I painted it a deep kind of indigo blue, and then I clear coated it. The silver and the yellow are just added details. Obviously, because the head was 3D printed, the whole thing had to be painted. You could have gotten the head in a red plastic, but I didn't know if it would be the same shade of red, so I wanted to try and match that myself. Anyway, super solid, super happy with this. Honestly, in terms of being a version of Nexus Prime, for something that's like really a complete custom, made up of like some limbs that might not exactly fit, I think that you look at it, and if you know Nexus Prime, like you know that this is Nexus Prime. I think it's I know I'm biased, but I'm going to say it's a solid 9. The only real way I think it could be improved, considering the molds that are available, the only way I think it could be improved is if we actually had a red tank lad over on the shoulder. Otherwise, I feel like the best molds here have been used. Some people might say that the torso is better served with the onslaught version of the mold. There's an argument for that as well. Either this or that, both can be painted to be suitable. Both can certainly embody the character if you put a little bit of love into it. And finally, here he is with good old sad Nexus Prime. Okay, alright, I know. When I said that, you probably expected me to show him off with all the primes. We'll get to it in a second, but I would be remiss if I didn't actually show this, because this poorly done $7.50 Canadian KO is the inspiration for what we have here. I feel like it's night and day, like, you know, I mean, it is what it is, right? A picture speaks 1,000 words in this case. This was a nice inspiration, but man, is this thing not. Like, you want to talk loosey-goosey, man? Just saying. This was rough. Okay, now finally, here he is with, yes indeed, all of the other primes that make up the 13. Now, to be fair, there's some here who are cardinal, and there's some that change depending on the continuity that you follow and ascribe to. Generally, I follow the Covenant. And there is one exception made here. Hopefully eventually at some point we will rectify that. So, based on that, I don't have things like Solomus, for example. Based on that, you know, like the last Autobot wouldn't exactly count as a prime, though in some he does, as Autonomous Maximus and whatnot. But based on the Covenant, which for most people is kind of the go-to for the 13, not for everybody, but for most, we have now my custom Amalgamous Prime, Vector Prime 13, who, spoiler alert, is Optimus. Somebody said recently that Optimus wasn't a member of the 13. Yeah, he was. He was 13. If you've read the Covenant, then it's explicitly said in there. And explained how he renounced, you know, his identity to be like the commoners, and he was Orion Pax until he'd be needed again, and blah, blah, blah. There's a whole story in the Covenant about it. But, I mean, you could trade him out with the last Autobot, or you could trade him out with anybody, really. The Protoform Optimus has been retconned to be a version of Prima. We have the Make Toys Chaos Paladin, which is now my version of the Fallen, because some people will say, hey, that's the Fallen over there. Actually, when you put the kind of paint apps and stuff on it and look at the picture of him from the Covenant, it, like, the kind of spiky, oddball nature of them sort of matches Amalgamous better. I'd like I'll say an official Amalgamous. I really do feel like that's just a stand-in, but it's a stand-in that works for me for now. Down front, thanks to Razor Bear, we have Solus Prime. Behind, we have Nexus Prime. Why did I really struggle over that? I don't know. We have a version of Macadam, who is, of course, Alchemist Prime down there. I think I got that from Input. If I'm wrong about that, whoever I got it from can clarify, but I think I got that guy from Input, if I'm not mistaken. My custom Quintus Prime. We gave the kind of Cyberverse Quintesson a bit of a makeover, a lot of paint here, some pieces added on. He now has arms, just as Quintus is supposed to. Then kind of way over in behind Alpha Trion, we have the Sound Blaster that came out as part of the 35th anniversary line. It's the Siege Sound Blaster with a custom painted Hell Buzzsaw. Again, the Cybertron Sound Blaster would be Logos Prime, and this is an example of someone I have filling in. Right now I have Logos Prime sort of filling in because I don't have a version of Liege Maximo, and I don't have a version of Onyx Prime. And finally we have Alpha Trion, who again in the Covenant is one of the 13. So really, what we're kind of missing is an Onyx Prime and a Liege Maximo by rights. But we still have 12 out of 13 members because we have the Liege traded out with Logos. There's other ones that could kind of go in here, but I'm really happy with how this Dynasty of the Primes worked out so far. And while there's a couple that could still certainly be improved, looking at you, Alchemist Prime, Macadam. Oh, and we have my Cronus right down front as well. I forgot to mention my Cronus, who is actually one of the Titan Masters. I like this. I feel like it makes sense for the Dynasty of the Primes. And honestly, towering above them all, just as he should, is Nexus Prime, and I really like the way that it turned out. Obviously, I have a personal stake in this, and other people have done other things. The actual one goes for bonkers money in the aftermarket, so this is probably the most successful kind of remedy outside of spending about 450 US on that actual, I think it was BotCon exclusive or something, maybe Collector Club, maybe. Outside of spending that kind of crazy money on the official, I think doing this custom for Nexus Prime is about as close as I'm gonna get. And here we are once again, and here he is again in all of his glory. Look, the other things that were in the package, I mean, they were mostly throwaway items, but some people do like them. The Onslaught, like, he's actually, like, the plastic was actually robust on him. I'll give credit where credit is due. There's a little bit more work that probably should have been done on that offering, but the plastic was solid. Then we got to, like, the Slugfest. I think that's his name, Slugfest, and, like, he was actually pretty good, but this was the main event. I love that I was led to this because of a really bad KO. A really bad KO that I only discovered, only knew existed thanks to Maximal 10. And for a while, as a bit of a running gag, he served my purposes as Nexus Prime. Why? Because I only had 4 or 5 primes. But as I inched closer to actually having 13, or a version thereof, I found myself wanting to have a more kind of sensible version, usable version of this guy, Nexus Prime. And the actual one is nuts, something like 450 US dollars. Like, no, that's insane. So I ended up kind of through Tortoise finding a set that was mostly red, and of course my wife was able to kind of source that, and I got the other lads to finish them off. In this combined mode, I'm really happy. Would a red tank be nice? Yes, as I said, that would be nice, but I can certainly make do with the way it is here. I look at it, it looks like Nexus Prime. I have shown it to some people and they recognize it as Nexus Prime. So you know what, it must be close enough to be able to pull it off. I need to figure out something for Onyx, and probably the Liege Maximo, but I feel good about inching ever closer. Let me know what you think about how this guy worked out. What would you do different? What would you do to have a Nexus Prime of your very own? Of course, I have a subjective slant here. It is what it is. Let me know, as I said, what you think of this guy, what you would do. I appreciate you coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position, man, to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we offer to you through Teespring. Or, of course, hit the join button right here on YouTube to become a channel member. While you're at it, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old-fashioned way, baby, right here inside the videos.